Alright, I'm recording the recap. It's been like 2 days since IEM Atlanta and IEM or not IEM PGL Astana concluded, is done, whatever, right? I'm doing the recap now. I have to record like 3 videos today, because I have to also do CAC, which is upcoming, so I have to preview that. Like, there's a lot of stuff I want to do. So first we're doing PGL Astana. PGL Astana was the tournament I talked about first and was the tournament I was more interested in and I watched more of. I tried watching both. I'm not gonna lie, it was like a Navy SEAL hell week for me. I was watching like 12 hours of CS like a day, barely getting in food, barely getting in like time to go to the gym and do other shit. Um, so yeah, it was really difficult for me to watch both tournaments. Whenever I'd wake up, I'd instantly go see what happened at Atlanta. Even though I live in Canada and like North America, right? I actually, it's easier for me to do Astana because of when I wake up. I wake up rather early, so I had to watch a lot of CS. So I was really tired. But we will just get into Astana very quickly. We're gonna recap it. We'll go from last place team to the first place team. Everybody saw who won. Everybody saw who got the MVP. We'll talk about it later. But first, K27. K27 had a bit of a disappointing run. If I'm being honest, I kind of expected them to do more, but I also kind of understand they're like rookies, and this is their first time playing at a tier one LAN outside of Fame. Fame was with the squad. He was standing in. Apparently, they just extended his loan to K27 as well, which is kind of funny. Because I think Fame played pretty well. I think Quinky played pretty well. I think Jito and Cashwood. I don't think Jito was bad, but I think Cashwood was very disappointing. I think Cashwood showed none of what he showed in tier two. I think it's I think maybe it could be nerves, it could be pressure, it could be all, because of all these things. A lot of people are not going to take a lot of things. People are not going to take a lot of takeaways from K27 at this event, but I don't think like O3 is kind of expected result, but I didn't. I just wanted to see more, right? I just wanted to see more. But yeah, it makes sense for the result. Fisher College, no comment. I actually didn't watch any of their games at all. This was the one team that whenever they were playing, I just skipped because I figured, oh, they're going 0-3 instantly. I was like, as soon as I saw this team make it, I'm like, yeah, this team is going 0-3. Like, this is the easiest 0-3 of my life. They might take a map, but they didn't even get one map. So Fisher College, no comments. They lost, kind of expected. Congrats for being a collegiate team to make a tier one LAN, but they were never gonna do well at this tournament. They were just never. Heroic, disappointing. I think Youngster had a really rough tournament from what I remember. We can check by going to stats. But I think Youngster had a really rough tournament. I think Nilo tried carrying pretty heavily. I think Nilo was actually fairly solid when I watched him. I said the word again. xCloud, Susp, Youngster, yeah, 0.93. xCloud, who is their secondary star and is arguably their T-side engine, him having a 0.93 at this tournament is a really bad look. Krisen also did really bad, 0.75. Like, that's as low as Kerrigan, right? But Kerrigan has Nico and Monacy. He has Nilo and xCloud, and when xCloud also isn't shooting, it's not a good sign. Um, so yeah, I'm gonna. It's not a great tournament. I figured they would go 2-3, maybe 3-2, and just sneak into playoffs barely if like one of the top dogs messed up, which a few of the top dogs did mess up at this tournament and kind of did lose to underdogs, who we will talk about, aka Magic. I'm very proud of my boys, but yeah, very disappointing. And then where was Nilo? Nilo was 1.04, but again, a lot of these rounds, like he's playing late round, he's playing clutch situation, so it's very hard for him to get impact in a lot of these games. When the T side star Space Taker is not making any space, the Opper isn't hitting his off shots on CT side or T side, and um, the IGL is struggling individually. Like when everybody else is struggling individually, I can't really look at Nilo and be like, Nilo, you got to carry it. It's like, what is he expected to do? He's playing late round. Like he's closing, right? Like he's not able to. Right, so I can't blame Heroic too much. A bit disappointing. I thought they would do better, but it is what it is. Uh, the Huns. I watched like one game. I think I watched their game against Monty. They played them actually rather close. I don't really have a lot of takeaways, if I'm being honest. Like, there's a few teams I didn't watch a lot of, and Huns and Fisher College were the two I didn't watch almost any of because I just didn't care. I watched their game against Spirit. Spirit just, kind of dunked on them. I think I got close on Ancient from what I remember, but nothing really surprising. I kind of expected Hans to do bad. Score. He's talented. He's got mechanics. 9. He can hit some pretty good shots on a deagle, but not a lot to take away from the Huns. I just don't. Again, a lot of these teams I just don't care about. Paravision are really disappointing. I think this is probably the most disappointing. I didn't even expect them to be this bad. I expected them to go 2-3. I expect them to go 1-3. 1-3 is really bad. Of course, they got some more difficult draws. They got G2 in their 1-2 game, which kind of sucks for them. But I also think this is a sign of the times for Paravision. I think James is able to develop systems and is able to get teams up and running, and let them have super high peaks. But the problem is this team has no floor because of the players they have, right? Now, I was a big fan of a lot of these players when I watched them in Tier 2. People like Gilo from Gun 5, Noda from Amcal and Rush B before, and Belchnok was on Paravision originally. Um, but this was really like they have all kind of individually fallen off. I think Noda had an awful tournament. We can check, but I'm pretty sure he had a really bad tournament. Um, yeah, he had a 0.92. Again, he plays a lot of the CT side star roles and a lot of the T side opener roles. And when you have a player that's playing like arguably some of the highest resources in the squad and isn't delivering, it's just awful. Like it doesn't matter. Zway also didn't have a good tournament from what I remember, right? I don't want to use stats too much to back up my point, but this was a really disappointing tournament from Paravision, and Dasan has already commented multiple times on making changes or considering changes, right? He said Zway and Jame are mostly safe. Gilo seems okay, like in terms of his like they think he can deliver more, but Noda and Belchnok they're looking at because of how many mistakes they make, right, and how many games they lose just through those mistakes, right? So if Noda gets replaced, I wouldn't be surprised. I thought he was Omega talented when I watched him on earlier renditions of Paravision when they were playing in Tier 2 and Amcal. But if he gets replaced, I mean, it's understood, right? Like, you get into Tier 1, you have to perform, and he's not performing, especially with all the resources he's getting. And as well as Belchanok. Like, Belchanok has moments, but he also makes a lot of mistakes. He overpeaks a lot. Does things he doesn't have to do. He's not just that stable presence that can hold like just close out the rounds, right? That Jamin's way are offering the team, because those guys are far more consistent in terms of their decision making and the decisions they make on the overall game. Like they don't just give up stupid deaths for the most part. Those guys, but Zway even had a bad tournament this thing. So Paravision are probably gonna make changes after the major, from the sounds of it, unless Noda and Belgian like earn their spot like in these upcoming tournaments and at the major. But otherwise, they're making changes. Gentlemates go 2-3. They lose to Magic, which in my opinion they should have beat Magic. I actually thought when I was rooting for Magic because Magic are my boys, right? They're my boys, Tenzi and Maswell. But I was expecting Gentlemates to win. I'm like, Gentlemates have more land experience. They played on bigger stages. They should have the fact. I've seen these guys play like get hot starts. However, I did watch Stake ranked episode 2 online qualifiers. I think that's what the name of the tournament was. Basically, the qualifying tournament to stake ranked episode 2 that's coming up semi soon. I think after the major. Um, and Magic did beat them there, right? That was the head to head that I was considering. I'm like, but it's on land, so are things different? On top of that, I wasn't sold on Magic's calling at this tournament. I saw some pretty questionable things from Magic this tournament. I love them, but I gotta criticize them, right? Because I love them so much. So yeah, I figured Jailmates were gonna do. On top of that, Mopaz and Martina Sa were actually playing rather well. Saucer was having a lot of impact. WG was a bit underwhelming, and Alex was, doing typically what how Alex does individually wise. Um, and they played some like really close games against Furia, right? Like they almost took Nuke against Furia like to an OT when they started off really rough on their T side. Um, but yeah, just not able to do it. They lose to Magic, and Magic get the playoff spot. So I think Gentlemen they do have a mentality issue, is what I'm starting to see. I don't think the individuals are the problem. I think it's a cultural mentality thing. I think a lot of people are starting to lose faith in this roster or in this group of guys, as individuals and as a squad collectively, right? I'm not completely sold. I'm not I'm not selling my Gentlemate stock completely yet because I still think some of the pieces are good. I think a lot of the pieces work well together and they play good CS. And when they hit that high, like they hit the high highs, right? When they hit the peak, it's so good because it's so dominant against these weaker opposition, and it just looks like they crush them, right? With their pace, with their speed, with the communication, like it looks so well coordinated. But then when they something goes wrong in these like high pressure games, that it's and they've even touched upon it at I'm pretty sure in recent interviews. I think Alex has. So yeah, Monty. It's not completely disappointing. I think 2-3 is fine. I would think they kind of got fucked over by the draw. They faced teams like Falcons and I think Furia. I think Falcons and Furia. They faced some pretty tough teams at this thing. We can check. Hold on. Okay, wait. I can just do that. I'm so stupid. Hold on. They faced. Okay, they almost lost in this Huns game, by the way. So they faced Falcons and they faced Magic and they faced Furia, yeah, and then they faced G2. So they faced some like pretty tough opposition this tournament, and I don't think it's completely fair to them because they're a team that's like a cut above the rest of tier 2. They're in that like tier 1.5 range where it's like they're very clearly a cut above tier 2, but they're not quite good enough to face up against the top dogs of tier 1 and beat them. I do think they have some upset potential, but when somebody like Afro isn't really delivering, Afro I think had a bit of a rough tournament. I was saying Afro was potentially a top 10 upper, not on a top 10 team. He did not live up to that billing at all. That hot take that I had just looks completely stupid when Afro isn't firing. I think if we check, I think it was pretty low. Yeah, it was 0.98, which, by the way, Afro at like CCT Global Finals was like beasting. He had like a 1.27, 1.3 or something. He had something really high, right, for an opera, and he was having so much impact in the late round in terms of the clutch. But just this tournament, not able to have it. Even on his map, like even on a map like Nuke that he's usually known for, just wasn't able to have it. I think Azulu, like it's getting to the point where Azulu actually like if you replace Azulu, this team is actually scary. No, if I don't even hate Azulu. That's the funny thing. It's when you get to play the star roles he does, the rotator positions and the space taker positions, and you don't deliver any numbers. Like this guy had a 0 kill game. He had like 17 rounds of play on Dust 2 in their elimination series against G2. He got 0 kills in that series or in that Dust 2 map. 0 kills. It was criminal. Like I watched it live, it was criminal. So if I'm gonna make changes, it's a Zulu. I wouldn't touch Bemis. I wouldn't. Bemis, I would consider, but I think Bemis can get back to his level. I saw some good things at this tournament. I think he was even carrying some maps when they were doing bad. Um, but Rainwaker, I wouldn't touch. Wouldn't touch Afro. Wouldn't touch Gizme. Bemis, I would consider, and Azubu, I would cut. Like if I'm making changes after the major, that's what I would do. I'd cut Azubu. Get an actual space taker, Flames or something. If he's available, pick up Flames. See if he wants to join. Because having a space taker who can open up the map and actually win duels will help, right? So, yeah. Uh, the Mongols, a lot of people are going to say it's disappointing because they didn't make playoffs. However, if you consider their run, I don't think it's actually that bad. I think Mongols had a bit of a tough time. So they faced Magic in their first game. They then get Spirit. They should lose to Spirit. In my opinion, they should lose to Spirit. It's pretty close. They beat G2. They go up against Falcons. It's really close against Falcons. It's actually OT on Mirage, in which I'm pretty sure Falcons come back. Um, and then they face Aurora. Should they beat Aurora? Yes. In my opinion, they should beat Aurora. But I also don't think it's completely their fault because they kind of did just get like almost every single one of the best teams at the tournament besides Magic. Like almost every single good team at the tournament they got. Every tier 1 team they got. So they didn't get an easy match, right? Outside of Magic. So I don't think it's completely their fault. I think 910 was really good at this tournament. Mizzino had an insane overpass against Aurora. on their final series, right? I watched a decent amount of Mongols at this because they were playing a lot of the teams I want to watch. Mongols are a team I kind of enjoy in general, but they're not a team I'm overly biased towards or favor. I like some of their pieces. I like Mazzinho. I like 910. I think Cobrazera is decent. I think he needs more time. Cobrazera had a bad tournament. I understand that. Blitz individually has kind of fallen off. But even then, I think this team is doing what I kind of expected. And I don't think this tournament result, it looks disappointing, but I think when you consider who they were up against, a lot of those matches are like 50-50s. They're like 55 50-50s, or they're like 45-55s, or they're 55-45s, right? And that can swing either way. So I give them some leniency with this result. I don't think it's completely on them. I think they did kind of get fucked over by Swiss. So Huns not too disappointing, or not Huns, Mongols not a too disappointing tournament result, but it's gonna look that way for most fans. Aurora, they lose the opening games of Heroic in a 0-2 fashion, and this is why also I think Heroic's run is completely disappointing, because Heroic lost to worse teams than Aurora, but they beat Aurora. So I have no idea what happened, because in this thing I was like, oh, so Heroic are going to make it the playoffs, and then they don't. But anyway, Aurora lose to Heroic in their opening match. They then face off against the Huns. That's a gimme every single day. They then beat Paravision. Kind of makes sense when you consider their player quality. Aurora have insane player quality, but whatever color. I think Madra has actually gotten better at this tournament. I saw more things from Madra. I saw more. He allows his lurkers to play and make more decisions. So I think that's better. I think he was actually mid-rounding a lot better. He wasn't just deathballing everything. He was mid-rounding better. So I saw some good things from Madra at this tournament, but James is still a better color than Major, but Major has significantly better pieces in Wicadia, Soulfly, Zantares, Woxic. Like, they're all better. Um, so yeah. And then they face off against Mouse. They lose 0-2. It's close because Zershin was God mode. Like, Zershin was God mode this entire tournament. We'll talk about him later. And then they beat Mongols in a rather close series where Mazzinho actually delivers rather well, but it doesn't really matter. But they choke in playoffs. They did nothing against Mouse in playoffs, right? Zantares had a horror tournament. I think this was one of Zantares' worst tournaments I think I've ever seen him play, even in group stages. Like, not considering his playoff choking issues, because he's had those for a long time, but I don't think he did very well at this tournament in general. He had a 1.08, which probably looks okay, but it's probably because he farmed Huns or something. We can actually just check. Hold on. Did okay against Heroic. Didn't farm Huns. Actually, what? Where is he getting his stats? Oh, because he farmed Paravision. Is that actually where he got it from? Farm Paravision? Okay. I don't know. I don't know how they're rated Aurora. I mean, they're playoff chokers. They make out of groups. They typically make all the playoffs for the most part. Not all the time, but they make most playoffs in general. I don't know how they're really rated Aurora at this tournament. I saw some good things from Major. I think Major's calling has improved. I think Soulfly has continued to show that he's in one of the best pickups, I think, of the offseason from 2026, or from 2025 going into 2026. This guy overperforms in a lot of his roles. He shows me consistency that sometimes I didn't see out of Joda. I think Joda individually was maybe a better player, but I think Soulfly is actually a better fit for the squad. And on top of that, the mechanics, like, Soulfly has actually impressed me with his mechanics, where I think he's far better mechanically than I initially gave him credit for. And I was somebody who watched him on Firefox, and I watched him carry that team with Banjo, but I think he's even better than I thought. So Soulfly, I think, has been super impressive. Woxic, I think, was okay at this tournament. I didn't see too many bad things from him. I also saw some good moments. Maybe a bit more quieter in terms of like clutching and op impact, but I don't think he would. I saw him some good moments with the rifle at this tournament, so I don't know how to feel. And then Zontaris, I think this was one of his more worst tournaments. Again, the rating looks favorable, but something via the eye test just told me this was not a good tournament from Santaris for his standards, right? Because his standards are rather high. I rate him very highly. So, Aurora, okay tournament. I think they still should have beaten Mouse, because Mouse are a team without almost any practice. Zelix is very new to his roles, very new to Tier 1. Spinks had a horror tournament, and yet they still won. But we're going to talk about why when we get to Mouse. G2, they got smashed by Spirit. The crowd cheating was really bad in that match. If you watch that match was awful to watch as a fan, because of how much crowd cheating there was involved. They beat some okay teams to make it here. They beat Monty and Paravision, who are fine, but Paravision are on a downward slump. Monty are still adjusting to tier 1 play. And I don't know who else they beat. They didn't. Oh, they got smashed by Mongols on Dust 2. Anyway, Inferno was a lot closer. Um, lost to Mouse. Lost won against Fisher College. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. This is a very disappointing tournament from G2. A lot of people are gonna say new roster. Nerds is still integrating. Hunter hasn't had a lot of time to play with Nerds yet. I understand those arguments and complaints, but I still don't think it's good enough. I feel like G2 should be better than what they are. I think the pieces make sense. I think I'm having a problem with Hunter's style of calling because it feels like they haven't evolved past the idea of take back control, go into an execute fast. That is basically what they do. They do it in two stages, right? Take back control, go for an execute. They have not a lot of mid rounding, not a lot of unique ideas. Like a lot of it is very poppy and punchy and fast. And I understand why that works when you have players like Mattis or Heavy God or Nerds. Like that can work and that has worked, right? Because Nerds showed it with Snappy. Mattis is just incredibly sharp. He's like modern day config. I've made that comparison a million times when talking about him, but he is the modern day config for me. So mechanically gifted. And then Heavy God, he will close out the rounds. And Sabias has actually been rather good recently. I think Sabias has actually been a rather good opper since Anima Graph 2 came out. I know that's placebo, but it seems like he's gotten better. But I don't know. Hunter as a caller, I'm starting to question. I feel like if you gave this project to a better IGL, they would probably get more out of it. But Hunter individually isn't even fragging as well as he used to. I think if we check the stats at this tournament, I'm actually curious. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it because it's probably going to take so long. Wait, is he actually above? Oh, there he is. 0.97, which is like not bad for an IGL. Like I feel like most people are gonna say, that's actually rather okay for an IGL. It is rather okay for an IGL. It's actually pretty good for an IGL if you have a 0.97. But again, I'd rather my IGL be 0.88 like Alexi B and call good mid rounds and good ideas. So yeah. G2, I think it's a disappointing tournament from them. I don't think they won against anybody that was really that good. So I'm gonna hold them to the standard. I think IGL change you might have to consider it. Like get a decent IGL, and because I think the pieces are good enough. I think when you have Mattis, Heavy God, Nerds, Sampaias, especially when Sampaias is playing this well, I think you have to do more. I think Nerds has been whatever. He's been fine. He's been good even, but he hasn't been like amazing. Mattis can't anchor for shit. Get him in different positions. Please don't force him to play B apps. It's so fucking stupid. Every time I watch the games and I see him B apps, you cannot tell this guy to jump spot B apps every time. It just doesn't make sense. You have to put him in rotator spots. So don't make him an anchor. Get an IGL who will anchor. 9Z overperformed. They went 3-0 throughout Swiss. Seems super impressive, and then they lost to Magic. And we're going to talk about the Magic loss, but I think they overperformed in groups and underperformed in playoffs. I think Luchov showed a lot of good things at this tournament. Luchov really impressed me. He was so mechanically sharp, rather smart with a lot of his decision making. Marin as an opper is not good. He is not a good opper. He's a fine rifler. He's not a good opper. DGT, fine, good, even at this tournament. Max, I think, had some very good calls, especially in the Falcons game. If you watch that Falcons game was hype because a lot of the stuff Max was calling, like they called almost a perfect Dust 2. Like I saw nothing wrong with a lot of the ideas he came up with. It just felt like they were in flow state that game and they were never going to lose. Especially with Luchov playing that well, there was no way they were going to lose that series. Surprisingly, when Falcons have all that firepower, but like somehow the riflers just bang heads. And Huaso Peak was good as well this tournament. But 9Z, I think they overperformed in groups. I think a lot of people were being like, oh my god, maybe this is a top 10 team. I don't think they were ever going to be that. Again, not enough consistency and not enough sustainability for that. 9Z typically does this every year or so where they have a super impressive result where they make like, for instance, I'm pretty sure it was IEM Dallas 2024 where 9Z make it to playoffs, right? and everybody's like, oh my god, is this suddenly like a new South American team that's like a top 10 team? And then they do nothing afterwards, right? It seems like DGT, whenever he joins these projects, have these overperformance periods, and then it tapers out, right? Because you saw it in Austin with Payne, right, where they make semifinals. You saw it in IEM Dallas 2024. You saw it here, IEM Atlanta, or sorry, PGL Astana. Jesus, I'm getting the two tournaments confused now, right? So yeah, they overperform, and then there's a quick fall off, right? And I don't think it's going to be sustainable at all. I don't think it is. I think just a one tournament wonder, I think, type of thing. And especially losing the Magic, who, by the way, all these players have more experience on stage and at tier one lands than Magic do, like combined. Like it's not even close. Like none of these players have experience at tier one lands besides AW. So, yeah, I would say it's a good performance. You made it to playoffs, but you still lost to Magic. And losing the Magic, I don't think you should lose the Magic. So I'm a bit critical, but I also understand. Good result. Furia, sadly, they kind of got unlucky in terms of. I saw more from Furia at this tournament. It seems like they've kind of caught themselves out of the slump. They dominated it in the first two maps they played. Against Monty, they smashed them, and against Heroic, they also smashed them. And then they got Spirit, and then they got Gentlemates, right? And they beat Gentlemates fairly comfortably. Probably shouldn't have lost the Overpass, but I think they played Overpass really sloppy if you watch that series. So yeah. But they go 3-1 through the groups, and then, or through the Swiss, and then in playoffs they get Falcons. And Falcons is kind of just an unlucky draw, if I'm being honest. They sadly get the hardest draw of the group, and probably the team you want to play the least in playoffs because of what. If Mondesi, Nico, Kerrigan, and Kiyosuke all wake up on the right side of the bed, and obviously Tessa's, that's not a fun team to verse. It doesn't matter how well you play. That team is not fun to get into playoffs for your quarterfinals, right? So they sadly get the short end of the stick. The Furia Falcons game in the quarterfinals was amazing. It was like one of the best games I think I've watched this year. I think it might be the best game this year, and especially that nuke map. That nuke map was incredible. Mondesi went godlike in that mode. Molodoi had some great moments on Mirage and Nuke, but he kind of tapered off towards the end of Nuke. And I think on Dust 2, he wasn't able to kind of rekindle it. He wasn't able to kind of show up and push them over the line. From the players, I think Yukindar has been a bit, not a bit, I would say he has been disappointing in terms of what he showed last year in 2025. I think 2025 um, he definitely showed more in playoffs. He definitely showed more in the big games, but it seems like Yukindar has kind of fallen off a bit. Um, Not a bit, but he has fallen off. Yuri has been, this tournament he was better, I think. I mean, I'm going to check stats, so I'm not talking out of my ass. But I think Yuri 1.0 is like acceptable. He plays a lot of the anchor roles. 1.01 from Fallen. So like a lot of these stats look good. Yes, now they obviously farmed lower tier opposition as well, so you have to consider these things. But I think even when I watched the Falcons Furia game in the quarterfinals, they were fine. Ikenner actually played well this tournament. Okay, so maybe I am just talking out of my ass because Moldoy and Case Rudder are both extremely highly rated at this tournament. So maybe Furia actually did okay and they just got a really unlucky draw. I saw some more things from Furia. It seems like they're a little more reinvigorated. Um, Maybe looking good going into the IEM Cologne major. A lot of people are going to say like there's probably like 4 or 5 top contenders for the championship. A lot of people are going to. I still think Vitality are the favorites despite losing to Navi and IEM in Atlanta. We'll get to that later when I make that video. But I think this is an pretty okay result for Furia. I understand Molodoi probably wanted to win in Astana, but sadly, you just get Falcons in quarterfinals and you lose. And it's a close map. It was an awesome map, but that is what it is. Not a bad tournament result, in my opinion, from Furia. Magic overperformed every expectation I ever had as a fan. I am a fan of this team for a few reasons. One of them is Tenzi. The other one is Masvel. I've talked about them so much, and I love them so dearly. However, Magic overperformed in every sense of the thing. I was like, them making playoffs is already like an insane feat to me because I was like, they have zero tier one experience outside of AW. This team has never played against tier one opposition. this is their first, like, second or third international LAN. Like, I was like, there's no way Magic are gonna do anything at this thing. They'll probably go 1-3, maybe 2-3, and and they'll lose. And I'll be fine with it. If Tenzi and Masvidal perform, I'll be fine with it. That was my logic. But somehow they make it to quarters, and then they somehow get the easiest matchup in quarters, being 9Z, and then they beat 9Z and they go to semis. And yes, they get banged up by Falcons, but it doesn't even matter because how did they do it? How did they actually make semis? Now, I saw some problems with Magic. I think some of the calling, I was going to lose it. I was actually getting mad with the calling. I don't think S8 is a bad caller, but I do have a problem. They do this thing where they play like kind of slow default map control and then they go into a late round exec. The problem I have with it is they did it every round and they never switch it up. They never switch up the tempo or the timings in a unique way on the T side. Especially on Mirage, it felt like they kept doing the same thing and it was so telegraphed and I was starting to lose it. I was like, why are we not like going for a fast play? Why are we not getting Tenzi involved in these rounds earlier? And that's another thing I've noticed about Tenzi. I don't think Tenzi, maybe it's because I watched too many ancient demos of his, but on Mirage B apps, because that's the position he plays on T side, he does not do anything. Even on connector and overpass as well, doesn't do anything. He's so passive in those roles. And it was making me lose my mind because all he's doing is he's holding the map space. He's not taking a 1v1 on on B apps at all, right? He's facing like, I don't know, like some IGL probably on that site. And he's not going for the 1v1, he's not testing it. And if Tenzi just took more initiative, took more inquisitiveness out of his position, in my opinion, he'd be a really scary player. But I saw how passive and how low initiative he was, and it was starting to piss me off because I was like, you need to get this guy involved. Like when you have a player who's this good at T side opening and this good at being like a sledgehammer who can just break into bomb sites, get him activated early. Don't let him sit on B apps and just hold map control all day, right? And I was having a problem with that from Magic this tournament. However, I think overall, the two pieces I highlighted performed at this tournament. I think Tenzi and Masvel both performed pretty well. They weren't super consistent. Tenzi had a godlike overpass game that I'm thinking about demo reviewing. He dropped like 50 kills on that map. It was absurd. It was completely monstrous on that map against K27. Now K27 weak opposition, but doesn't matter. They're still in the same realm of tier 2 in my opinion. I would say Magic are not slightly better, but are better, but they're in that same realm of tier 2, right? And Tenzi Omega dominated that map. So I think this is a good tournament for Magic. Not a good tournament. It's a great tournament for Magic, right? As a fan, I'm super proud of my boys. Um, from that team because I'm a tier 2 repper. I'm always going to rep tier 2. Tier 2 is my home. But yeah, awesome tournament for Magic. Overperformance, though. Third place, Mouse. I'm not going to lie. I'm not sold on Mouse. A lot of people are going to be like, well, Mouse made third place with brand new IGL, and that's cool and all. But here's my counterpoint. Xerxin dropped like a 1 point. What did he drop? Dropped a 1.33. Like, this is not sustainable. He's the IGL and he's dropping these numbers. Now, again, he's also calling around himself a lot. Spinks had a horror tournament. Every other player was below a 1.0 or below a 1.0 or a 1.0 for this tournament. I think Spinks had his worst career map at this tournament ever on Dust 2. Like, there was some I'm not sold by Mouse. I think the roles are bad. They use Zelix in the way I didn't want him to be used, which is they made him a hard support on CT side, gave him none of his roles, and on T side he's hard opening and he's just dying. I fucking hate it because I watched the guy in tier 2 and he was really good in tier 2, and I understand he's kind of like Spinks in terms of his positions and a lot of the ways he plays, so like in terms of the setup he gets, but if you were gonna do this, why add JL? You should have just kept fucking Jimmy. You should have just kept Jimmy, promote Zelix, put Zelix in like the third spot, right, that are more resource heavy, or give him some spots so he's at least comfortable. But they gave him none of that. So I hate the way they use Zelix. Jail, I'm more acceptable of it because I think Jail is a bit of an everything man. I don't think he should anchor either, but I don't think he should get all the rotator spots when you have Spinks and Xerxin. So I still think this team needs fixes. I think you need to cut one of Xerxin or Spinks. I think you have to cut one. Torji has been shit. Sorry, Torji. I like you, Torji, but Torji has been bad. Just, I don't know why. Animagraph 2 came out. He had a slight uptick at this tournament, but he's just been bad. I just haven't seen like a lot of missed op shots. The eye test tells me he looks like almost nervous in some of these moments. So I'm still out on Mouse. This tournament result has not sold me at all. Like Zershin will not drop 1.33s in the future. It's just not going to happen. He also had like 70% opener rate on like CT side, which is like ridiculous with like 27% opening attempts. I don't know the exact stat because I'm doing it off the top of my head, but it's something ridiculous. And now talking about the last two teams, Falcons and Spirit, we're going to talk about them very briefly. Spirit, awesome tournament from them. They showed a lot of depth on T side. I think Sotvik should be promoted, in my opinion. I would consider it if I'm Spirit. I would probably consider keeping Sotvik instead of Hallie, considering how Tenier looks better, team looks better, flash assists are a lot higher, which a lot of people are going to say, like flash assist, not a lot of people, but some people are going to say, like flash assist, oh, look, flash assist means the team has improved. It means their flashes are theoretically more effective. Like you need some flash assists to like prove that you actually throw the things and throw them effectively. But having the most flash assists doesn't mean you're the best team in the world at utility, right? Because I'm pretty sure Vitality has lower stats, but Vitality are still a better util team than Spirit, right? Spirit are a good util team now, I would say, because they're setting up Donk better, setting up their players better. Zontix, it seems like he's aiming for the head more. I don't know why that's a weird takeaway. It's just a funny takeaway. I don't think Zontix was actually bad at this tournament. I think the stats might say otherwise, but I don't think he was actually that bad. We can check. Zontix 1.02, which I don't think is too bad. He was doing some hard entering on this. He still plays a lot of the same spots he usually plays. So I don't think Zontix did bad at this tournament. I think Tenier had really good game in the first series, and then was slow in the next two series he played in the Swiss. And then playoffs, I don't think he started that strong, right? I'm pretty sure first playoffs map, he was kind of whatever. Yeah, 1.0. And then Mouse, better, right? But they smashed Mouse, so like it's not really much to take away. And then this one, he was much better. He actually had a really good, I'm pretty sure, Dust 2, he started really slow, but then he found a lot of good mid flanks or door long flanks from CT. Like on CT side, he was putting up a lot of impact. On T side, he was useless, but on CT side, he was really good. Raj, he had a lot of impactful moments as well. And then Ancient, I think he was quieter on Ancient, but at that point, it didn't matter. Donk was online, and they just kind of won the series at that point. So yeah, good things from Tenier. On top of that, Tenier was sick at this tournament, so I'm more willing to give him a pass for some of the slower or some of the worst maps where he wasn't performing because I watched the vlog that Spirit put out, and apparently Tenier said he couldn't even feel his mouse. He said he felt so sick he couldn't even feel his hand grip the mouse. So I'm gonna give him some pass and leniency on that. Magix as an individual has those weird pop-off games similar to how Kerrigan used to on FaZe, right? Where he has like the weird game where he just like all of a sudden can frag, which is funny. But I think Magix is a good enough individual as an IGL to where he's not a liability, which is good. I think Donk at this tournament he almost got over 1.00 KPR, which would be like what the fourth person to do it ever. And one of those records is already set by himself because of Kato, right? So he was really close, but I think he just gets like 0.98 or something. Yeah, 0.98, which is still absurd. He's still in an elite level of tournament that not many players will ever do. Um, so yeah, incredible tournament from Donk. Shiro felt more impactful, more clutching, more winning the clutches. A lot of great moments from him across the board. I think Spirit won this tournament fairly comfortably, and I'm very excited to watch them go into IEM Cologne because I think they are a favorite to show up and win or make a deep run. Right? I imagine they'll go far in IEM Cologne. I have a very strong feeling that they will. And if they get Vitality in quarters, I think that matchup is really exciting. If we get a Vitality or a Spirit in quarters or semis, like I think that matchup gets really fun if we see it at IEM Cologne. And now talking about Falcons. Falcons with the Kerrigan change. I think Kerrigan at this tournament had some pretty bad moments. I think winning 0T rounds on Nuke against 9Z is not a good look, and then getting smashed on Dust 2 is also not a good look by 9Z. However, I do think this Fury game convinced me that if you can get him the playoffs, he's got the juice for the calling because he had some very good calls on this nuke. On this nuke, him and Mondesi, I think, were two of the reasons why they had this success, right? Kerrigan with the mid rounding and the calls after all the chaos was created in the beginning rounds, right? Mondesi was fantastic this tournament. I think Kerrigan, just to touch on Kerrigan very briefly before I talk about Mondesi. Um, Kerrigan also could not frag at this tournament. He was awful fragging wise. However, I understand why. New system, he needs to focus more on the individuals and players, and he's also setting up Kiyosuke and Tessus more, which I think is good. I think so. Yeah. Now talking about the other players, Mondesi, incredible tournament. Could have been the loser or could have been the MVP if he won the tournament. Could have been. Donk was probably always going to take it if he performed in the finals at all. Um, and Donk did because this is one of Donk's best tournaments ever. But Mondesi could have been. He had an incredible tournament. This Furia Falcons game was amazing to watch, especially on the nuke. The nuke, he won them that game. They would have been out in quarters if not for Mondesi in that game. Um, in the Swiss, they were a bit more shaky, a bit more rocky. I saw some good things. I saw some bad things from Falcons. And sorry, I'm going all over the place, but it's just because I'm very tired and I want to sleep. Um, so yeah, Nico, I think had an okay tournament. I don't really remember how impactful he was. I think in the finals he was he was bad. He was really bad in the quarter. He was really bad in the quarters or the finals. Sorry, Magic. Wow, he smashed Magic. Congrats. And in this series, he was like, whatever. It was mostly Kiyosuke finally over his playoff choking issues. Holy shit, this guy actually is so good now with Kerrigan. And also want to add that Kerrigan and Kiyosuke, like I don't know, duo or whatever you want to call it. It's so funny to watch it on the cams because he's calling him his Breton and everything. It's just so funny. I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's one of those lighthearted things that's nice to like watch, right? Is like when a player is actually excited to play with another player, right? Enjoys playing with them because Kurisuke was like every time Kerrigan was brought up and he had a chance to talk about Kerrigan, bro, he just his face lit up, right? And you don't see Kurisuke like that, so I think it was kind of fun to watch. But I think Kurisuke was great at this tournament as well as Monsi. If Kiyosuke can keep showing up in playoffs, even if Kerrigan cannot drop numbers, even if Kerrigan is going to kill literally zero players, I don't care. If Kiyosuke, Monesi, Nico, and then Tessus as your X Factor shows up, you can win a lot of games. And I think going into Cologne, I have some expectations that they will go far. I don't know if they're going to win. I don't think they will. I think I'm not going to lie. I favor three teams above them who would go further in a tournament than them. However, honeymoon effect, technically this is the honeymoon effect because it's their first tournament, but I would say it's early on enough that you can call it honeymoon for the rest of the season until IEM Cologne is finished, right? I would call it a honeymoon for them where this team could do some bullshit, right? I think something that a lot of people realize at this tournament is Kerrigan was the bullshit factor of FaZe, right? And I think FaZe has some of that bullshit factor even without him, but I think particularly at this tournament, like when I watched the Furia Falcons game, that magic that FaZe had is Kerrigan's. Like that is his magic. He left some of it behind in FaZe, but it is his magic for him as an individual. So yeah. Uh so yeah, that was PGL Astana. Sorry, I'm very tired. I'm probably coming off as very delirious and incoherent and very tired, and I am. I'm very tired. I want to go to bed, but I want to get out the video. I have to make two more as well. Holy shit. That's not going to be fun. But it's fine. I like doing this. I like making videos. I like talking. I'm curious about what you guys think, though. Do you want me to be more structured in these videos? Do you want me to actually write down my points and have more coherent thoughts? Or do you prefer this ramble that I have, this ramble style? I'm still confused on what people actually really want to hear or what they want to think or what they want to see on the channel. Because I'm not actually sure what people want to see on the channel. I just kind of make these videos because they're fun and I like talking about CS. CS is a game I'm extremely passionate about. I was even watching. Funny enough, I had a stream open for Nodwin because Zyphon is playing, right? Sashi versus Hotu was playing, um, and I want to watch the 100 Thieves versus Nuclear Tigris game that is happening later, partially because 100 Thieves is a really fun project, and Flauser on Nuclear Tigris is really good. That he is a prospect who I'm keeping my eye on. But yeah, PGL Astana was a great tournament. I've already described this week as Hell Week for me because I was trying to watch two tournaments at the same time. I would wake up, watch the highlights from IEM Atlanta when I woke up on like 1.5 times speed so I could get caught up. And then as soon as the Sonic games were live, I'd watch them. And my eyes were getting so tired during this that I actually like felt my eyes like strained and like all red, right? Like you saw the blood vessels in my eyes, right? So it was not a fun week in terms of the physical strain on my body. Um, I know people are going to say, well, you're complaining about watching a game you love. I understand, but it's still it's a lot. And then on top of that, we have a tournament in less than 12 hours. Oh, there is a spider crawling across my desk. I'm going to end the video there. Thank you for watching.